passionate about farming, and that's one of the reason he's moved from. Though he's done his studies in astrophysics, astronomy, he's decided to move on to agriculture, and that's when he's founded along with his friend Magasool. So let's hear more about Ajay and what Magasool is all about, how this is helping both the farmers and consumers in India. So thanks a lot, Ajay, for joining in. Maybe you can introduce our new friends who are watching this about you, and then we'll get into farming because that's one of the subject which is very close to my heart. Been dreaming, it's been in the bucket list to start farming for a long time. So maybe someday I will also join you in farming. So over to you, Ajay.
Good morning, Ravi, and thank you for having me here. A bit about myself. As Ravi introduced me, I'm Ajay. I was born in a place called Ranchi, where Dhoni is from, in Jharkhand. My parents are from Tamil Nadu, but I spent about 14, 15 years of my life in Ranchi. Ranchi used to be a semi-rural, semi-urban kind of town. It's grown a lot in the last 20, 25 years. And then we moved to Bangalore sometime around my class 10 or so. And what I missed a lot when I moved from Ranchi to Bangalore was Ranchi had, you just step out 5-10 minutes, you drive out of Ranchi and you immediately move into a rural and a very green setting, which wasn't true of Bangalore even in the 90s. You had to drive out maybe an hour to get the same feel as Ranchi, and it's become much more urban now, right? I always had this, probably because of my upbringing from Ranchi. I think I always had this liking for being around in a rural setting, in an area that is green, and I think that must have played a part in my somewhere in the background in my head for a while. As I became older and became a teenager, I developed a passion for physics. I attended a couple of workshops in astronomy, and that sort of got me really interested in astronomy. And I was very sure until I was about, you know, 27, 28 or so, that astronomy is what would be my future. My career in astronomy as an academic would be my future. Uh, After I finished my PhD in 2008, I just took a break. I wanted to take a 1 year break because I was sort of burnt out from the PhD. I wanted to do something else. I applied for a whole bunch of jobs that I didn't care about what I was applying for. I just applied for jobs that seemed interesting, and in many ways, I think I was lucky that my first response came from an organization called IFMR Research in Chennai. I was lucky because as part of that, I was placed in Thanjavur, which is in, for those of you who don't know, which is the rice bowl of Tamil Nadu.
Right.
As part of the project, we were interacting with more than 8,000 farmers, if I remember correctly, on their farming practices, the problems that they were facing. And over that year of my break is how I developed my passion and interest for agriculture. I knew nothing about agriculture, so it was great to learn from farmers, their problems, their stories. And one thing I realized, I guess naively in hindsight at that point, uh, was that farmers are not adopting even the best technology that's easily available in their neighborhood. That's what I observed at that point. And I thought naively that if I just bring in technology, farmers would just be waiting for it. They'd grab the technology and then just run ahead with that. Over the last 7-8 years of work with farmers, my notion of why farmers haven't or aren't adopting technology has sobered quite a bit. Uh, and my thoughts have also evolved quite a lot. But I think I should my change from astronomy uh, to agriculture hasn't been a well thought out exercise. I'd say it's been a series of accidents, and every accident has been good for me, and I've been lucky in that sense.
Super. But yeah, complete transformation. So your first job, was one of the reasons where you got exposed to farming, and that's changed the way you look at things, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So my
So
first job was, it put me directly from the world of stars to the world of the ground, like farmers. It completely transformed. what I was looking at and what sort of problems I was looking at. It was completely new. It was a great opportunity for me to interact with a lot of farmers. Uh, and in lots of different parts of Tamil Nadu. Initially, it started with Thanjavur. Then, as I grew into the job, I interacted with farmers across India. And that slowly, with time, I wouldn't say there was any one particular point that changed my passion from astronomy to farming. It was just, a slow evolution over maybe a year or 2 years or so.
Super. Some of these things, just come as coincidence, the interaction or the type of guests get on the show. Uh, I was recently watching Kiss the Ground on Netflix. It completely talks about soil management. How we are converting soil into dirt. It's nice that I'm connecting with you, who's with a similar passion, and I see one of the services is into soil management. So, what are the common things, mistakes Indian farmers are doing, as per your?
I think I wouldn't call it a mistake. It's more of how circumstances have changed, right? In the sense that since the Green Revolution, there's been a heavy push on the use of chemical fertilizers, right? And that's been dominating Indian agriculture policy in terms of inputs for the last 50 years or so. Of course, there's been quite a bit of thinking on how that should be changed in the last decade. But the push and the entire agriculture extension system has been built around hybrid seeds, uh, chemical fertilizers, and pesticides. So the thing that eventually drew and still keeps farmers sort of attached to chemical fertilizers and chemical pesticides is you see immediate results, right? As soon as you put urea, your crop becomes green. As soon as you spray an insecticide and turn back, you can see dead insects. Whereas, if you transform to, I'd say, a more careful agricultural system, where you're making sure that the ecosystem is doing well for the long term, you don't see these immediate results. And I think the ecosystem has to change from showing farmers immediate results to saying that, hey, what you're doing shows immediate results, but there's a very long term consequence to it. How can I help you transform, right? Just telling people that, oh, there's a lot of problem, you're applying poison. Farmers do understand that they're applying poison. It's not that they're not understanding. It's just that the transformation process for them is very difficult and risky, right? And the biggest risk is what happens if I grow organic stuff? Where do I market it? If I'm not able to market it and if I don't get the prices I expect, it's just a lot of risk that the farmer is taking. And the ecosystem is just not ready. So I wouldn't say that most farmers understand the challenges. I don't think they're doing things wrong. They're doing what the ecosystem supports. So there has to be a lot of change around what farmers are doing for them to be able to switch.
Okay. So, what were the changes? I mean, you've lived in the US for a while, and you've come here. So personally, in terms of your lifestyle, and you completely gone to a different field. So how was the reaction from family, and uh, how was the lifestyle then there and here?
So I think per se for me, there hasn't been a big change in lifestyle uh, because my wife fully supports my work and she takes care of all of my expenses. Right. So my lifestyle per se has not changed much. I shuttle between Bangalore and Tamil Nadu. Tamil Nadu is where I do my work. Bangalore is where my family is. So I spend weekends in Bangalore. Rest of the time I'm in Tamil Nadu in the field. So per se, my lifestyle during the weekend has not changed that much, except for the realization that I am very lucky, and a lot of us who have this opportunity to be able to switch uh, between what we like and a sort of a more comfortable lifestyle, we are lucky, and I'm always mindful of that. So more than a shift in lifestyle, the switch from shifting from USA to India has been uh, a realization that I've been really lucky and that I should be make sure that I'm able to utilize that luck as much as possible. The other thing that has been different between the US and here, and I think a lot of people in your show must have also brought that up, is how informal and how easy it is for me to get attached to farmers that I meet even just a couple of times, right? People in India have still not, at least in rural areas, have still not gotten into a lifestyle where they don't have time to talk to you. People have time, people are welcoming. They might have huge differences with you, but they're always willing to chat over food and offer you food. And I think that's something that's really different from the US and India, and that's, I think, something I really like about here. No, I think it should be fine now. Fine now?
Yeah.
I think my hand is the camera.
Okay. So Ajay, let's talk about the Magasool. So why did you name it that? What does that mean? And what are the services you're currently working on?
So Magasool means agriculture yield in Tamil, and that was a name that my partner Jayaram he named it, and I think it's a unique name. Uh, the nice thing about that name is even without any trademark, there's nobody that has the same name. If you just
Oh,
type Magasool, it'll be us,
superb. Yeah. You're,
and
you're
it's
lucky
really
we have to.
apt, right? It means agriculture yield.
Yeah. So it's an app where the farmers can use it and the customers can use it. Who's.
No, no, it's not an app. So the way Magasool works, there are two parts to Magasool. There is a pre-harvest part, so between seed to harvest,
Okay.
and a post-harvest part. The pre-harvest bit is done through a trust, a not-for-profit trust. The
Okay.
post-harvest, where we link farmers to the market,
Hmm.
is set up as a private limited company. So the soil, all of the interventions from good quality seeds to managing the soil to insecticide using less insecticides for managing pesticides, better practices for production, all of that comes under the not-for-profit pre-harvest work. So our goal and target is simple, that we'll work with small and marginal farmers, right? And whatever it takes to work for them. And that's the reason why the pre-harvest work has been kept as a not-for-profit, because we want to keep our services completely affordable for even a farmer who has quarter of an acre, which is quite a few farmers in India. Uh, the post-harvest work is
Hmm.
once the farmers grow their stuff, they need to find markets, right? And that's set up as a for-profit venture. And it's set up in partnership with farmers and us. The way we work is that for whatever profit we make, we haven't made profits yet, but whatever profits we make, 50% of that goes back to the farmers that we are working with.
Good one. So, you also mentioned that you're doing a lot of training and workshops. So, does this include changing or educating the farmer with the mindset he currently is in?
So one of the biggest, I think the way we sort of our philosophy differs is that we never stop at education. All of the education that we do comes along with practical work, in the sense that if we are teaching farmers about a new intervention, we do the intervention for the farmer as well. Let me describe what an intervention means, right? If you've seen paddy work
Mm.
in, say, South India, uh, the transplantation from the nursery to the field is back-breaking, right? And it's mostly done by women because you have to, stand bent for hours in a day. So there are like mechanized solutions that are applicable for large farms outside of India, but some developed countries like Korea or Japan have farm sizes very similar to ours.
Mm.
So they have really cool technology that can be used up to even a quarter of an acre. So what we did was we found companies in India that are selling this technology. We trained farm operators to use this technology for farmers. We have trained mechanics now who can service these machines. And then we offer the transplantation service at a very nominal cost uh, to farmers. So, what this does is that 14 or 15 laborers that are required to do this work in a day for 1 acre is now replaced by two skilled people, just two skilled workers who earn maybe 4 or 5 times of what they would have earned if they'd just done the manual transplantation, is now done by a small machine that can, cater up to the smallest of fields in southern India. Uh, so what this does is those laborers who get trained, their daily incomes goes up quite a bit. Uh, Also, it removes the drudgery from doing the paddy transplantation. Now, you might ask, uh, is this solution applicable to a place like Bihar or Chhattisgarh where labor is abundantly available? I'll have to be more circumspect, right? In South India, there's been a lot of urban migration. Tamil Nadu is 50% urban. So, in addition to the drudgery, there is a labor shortage issue as well. So, in a place like Tamil Nadu, the solution is great. In some other state where labor is abundantly available, one will have to think whether this solution is apt or not. So we spend a lot of time in understanding the areas that we work with and bringing in technology only if it's locally applicable. Another solution I think that I think a lot of India should adopt is this very high use of pesticides that we had discussed in the beginning.
Right. Yeah.
There are a lot of conventional methods, both in the organic farming space as well as with mechanical pest traps, with biological pest traps that can reduce pesticide spending by a third, right? And this is an area where we talk to farmers, we train them, but we also implement these solutions on the farmers' fields to show them what difference it makes. We then show them the calculation, we show them details about how much they've spent, so that they have a really good idea of how a small shift in technology use can bring them big savings, and also big savings for the environment in terms of what they're spraying.
Super. That's a good one. So, what about water conservation? So, one of the services you mentioned, we have many states, and there's a lot of barren lands where there's limited water, and with a lot of changes nowadays, some states have lost the rivers, and there are a lot of fights happening between about water or the rivers. So, what are the solutions available for such scenarios?
So I think just to add to what you said, in one of the districts that we work in Tamil Nadu, in Thoothukudi, we're working in a block called Velatikulam. There are parts there where the groundwater is at 1300 or 1400 feet. Like, to be
Okay.
able to get groundwater, you have to reach 1400 feet down, and that water is also saline because the place is not too far away from the coast. Uh, so basically, these are parts where the farmers have to be entirely dependent on rainwater, and there's only one season a year. So one might say, there are these parts are one-off, but the worrisome thing is that we've been working in Kalpakam also for 8 years. Kalpakam is where the nuclear reactor is, and in farm villages around there, right? When we started working with farmers there in 2012, uh, groundwater was available at maybe 40 feet. And now in the summer season, we know farmers for whom this groundwater has gone down from 40 feet to 80 feet just within this,
Couple of
six,
months.
8 year period. And that's sort of, I just wanted to highlight the point that you made. Uh, so we have a lot of water disputes, as you said, even in places where farming was viable 10 years ago. Now getting water is becoming difficult. Farmers who were able to do 3 seasons are able to do two. Two has become one. And even for the farmers who are able to do it, the one problem with groundwater extraction that we forget, right,
Hmm.
is as long as you're close to the surface within 40, 50 feet, the amount of dissolved, you know, uh,
Yeah, tedious.
chemicals into it is less. The deeper you go, there's a tendency for the water to become hard. So if you apply that to your topsoil, not only are you spending a lot of money on extracting this water, you're also making your soil go bad. So there's a twin problem, right? Uh, the deeper you go, the worse the water quality for farming. So what we are trying to do in partnership with some farmers, and this is the recent work we've started in the last few years only, is that we are trying to work with farmers and encourage them to conserve surface water. So basically, old irrigation systems, old tanks, uh, and old canals that were built maybe 300, 400 years ago. Uh, but one thing that some of the farmers, brought to our notice, and that was something that we had always we hadn't realized. One of our team members in his interaction with farmers asked farmers as to why they're not conserving their water resources, why are they encroaching into canals, and the farmer said that in the last 30, 40 years, putting a bore well has been so easy that surface water we really didn't care about surface water. It's now that, and there was the ecosystem completely encouraged farmers to switch from surface water to groundwater, right? Because groundwater was so easily available, there's free electricity. So farmers said that they never really bothered and never thought that water is going to be a finite resource. It's only in the last 10 years they've realized the importance of old water systems that were available. And now I think farmers understand. So what we've been able to do, at least in some places, in a couple of villages, our staff there have been really enterprising in working with farmers to remove. So one problem that you would have heard is that a lot of encroachment happens on these
Yeah.
water systems, right? And as soon as you try to remove them through force, there are fights. So what are in at least a couple of systems, what our employees have been able to do is to build a consensus with farmers and convince the farmers who have actually done the encroachments to move out. I think which is a big thing. At least for us as a start, it's very encouraging that in the two systems that we've started with, the two water systems that we've started to restore, we've had no fights. We have, of course, had verbal discussions and arguments, but in the last 3, 4 months, we've convinced farmers to actually move out from the encroachment. What we are now trying to do is to convince the government to help restore it once the farmers have moved out of the encroachment, right? And so I think we're still learning on both sides as to how to convince the government to get their side of the job done quickly. We've had some good experiences with farmers on how on their cooperation to remove the encroachments. So I think if we succeed and show a positive example, we already have other farmers from neighboring villages who are interested. So once we get a couple of successes, I'm sure we'll be able to scale from 2 to 50 or 100 very quickly.
Superb journey. And it's everyday learning, and with mother nature, I think, and with the people, with farmers, with their tradition, old tradition, new tradition. I think it's everyday learning for you. I really
Yeah.
be the role which you're playing here, and everybody's friends, and I'm sure the farmers also discuss a lot of issues with you, saying that what practically happens, and how things go on, what are the challenges they feel on the field, apart from water, soil, and let's say pesticides and all that. What are the other common issue which they come and highlight you, saying that, hey Ajay, this is one issue we always face?
So I think the biggest problem that farmers face now is a market for their produce. And by market, I mean, of course, whatever they produce will get sold, but at a price at which it's remunerative. And I think that's the biggest challenge now. And that was the motivation for us to set up this farm to fork business in 2015. So we tried to take our technology solutions to dryland areas where farmers are completely rain dependent. Uh, and from our wetland experience, so places where there's irrigated water, farmers have been fairly quick to adopt our technology. But when we went to dryland areas, we spent a couple of years, we found that there was hardly any interest in what we were offering. And then we had a meeting with farmers, and they said that because they're so rain dependent, they're not interested in increasing their risk by adopting new technology.
Yeah.
All they want was a good
Okay.
price for what they're already producing.
Yeah.
And we also realized that for a lot of the dryland stuff, there's almost a factor of 5 difference between what the farmer receives
Mhm.
and what a middle class consumer in the city is willing to pay. So just as an example, right? uh, Millets are supposed to be the poor man's crop, right?
Yeah.
They're more expensive than
Very expensive.
rice, right? You can get a good quality rice for 30, 35 rupees a kilo, but good quality millets cost, at least some of the smaller millets, You can get ragi and bajra for 40-45 rupees, but the smaller millets like little millets and foxtail millets cost anywhere between 100 rupees to
100
150
to
rupees,
150, yeah, easily.
right? And these are supposed to be poor man's food. I would have been happy if a large chunk of the 100 rupees goes to the farmer. But if you look at the farm gate prices uh, for the raw material that comes in, it's anywhere between 20 and 30 rupees a kilo,
Oh,
right? So the biggest challenge for farmers is to get a remunerative price. Everything else is secondary.
true. Yeah. And a
And
lot of
that's the
logistics.
bit I think we've not succeeded much in the last 35 years. I'd say that, extension systems have progressed. We have learned that a lot of the extension in terms of chemical application and all of that is incorrect. There's a mistake. There's some effort to correct that, but we've done very poorly in trying to figure out how to help farmers on the price side. That has not changed at all.
True. I agree with you. So, Ajay, we have some rapid fire questions so that our friends can also know you well. So, are you all set ready?
Yes, sure.
Yeah. So, if you have to describe yourself, just Ajay, in 3 words, what is the best way to describe yourself? Keeping aside your passion, your farming experience, your education, just about Ajay.
I think highly optimistic, and I love to travel in buses. Those two would, if you just tell those two things, my friends will
Understand.
know that you're talking about me.
Okay. Your favorite number?
Is one.
Okay. And why?
Uh, I don't know. I think that's a number that, for me, it reminds my first step to agriculture, my first step to astronomy. So I love the number.
Okay. So, if I go and ask your friends, okay, reviews about Ajay, what would they describe you? Let's talk about college. Let's not talk about the friends who know what you're doing now. But if there is a review that is taken from your college friends, so how would they describe you?
So my college friends always my really good friends and my wingmates from hostel. The first question that they ask me is, "How is the air up there?" That's because I'm 6 feet 4, and that's how they would always. That's the first description that they always give.
That's a good one. Okay, what's the most controversial opinion you have? For things which are going around, might be from farming or some other industries.
Uh, so by controversial, what do you mean by controversial?
Hatke. I mean, public is thinking one way, and you have a different opinion, completely different opinion altogether.
Yeah, so I would think that I'll stick to farming because that's the subject I know about and I really like. I think with a lot of uh, we've made a lot of noise about agriculture, about organic farming, about zero budget agriculture.
Mhm.
Uh, but all of the noise, I think, is for the consumer. We have not done anything for the farmer, and I also think that the way we do organic is not right. We are targeting only the super rich consumers. Nobody else can actually consume organic in India, and that's, I think, completely wrong. And that's something that I dispute with a lot of people. Organic world over is branded for the ultra rich, and I think that's completely wrong in terms of how we're thinking about it. And most people I talk to disagree. They all think it's a good first step, but I think it's a bad first step.
True. So for Ajay, what is success? What is most important thing in life? A big bungalow, a beautiful, expensive car, or so what?
No, none of those actually. For me, success would be to be able to connect with farmers as long as possible.
Hmm.
So I used to think that there have been many times where I always thought that even at 80 and 100, I'll be able to travel in a bus and visit villages, and for me, that is success.
Okay.
I think if I'm able to connect with people at 75, 80, and continue with my work, that would be my success.
Okay. So what's the most recent success story that you have seen in this particular industry? In news articles, online, on social media, wherever. So small things, but that gives you hope that yeah, we are going in the right direction.
So I think what has excited me in terms of recent news items uh, is uh, is that farmers are becoming more vocal about. So one thing that used to happen in the past, and that has changed quite a bit, is that there used to be so-called farmer leaders
Mhm.
who remain farmer leaders from the age of 10 till they're 90, and they claimed that they were representing the voice of farmers, right? That is changing. I think there's a lot more voices, lot more young voices, and I see uh, if you actually go to the field, right, and there have been surveys now which show that the farmers are aging much faster than the population of India, which just means that young people are leaving farming, not sticking to farming, which used to worry me a lot 5 7 years ago. But I see a lot of interest in farming, both from you know rural youth as well as urban youth, and they're also open to raise their voices, and their voices are many times different from the so-called farmer leaders, and that excites me a lot.
You're from science, and you've studied science very deeply, especially physics. But is there any life event which has no science explanation in your life?
uh, no, I'm very very on that. I'm very science based. I would not think I have any experience that's not,
Okay.
because that would just completely change how I think and look at things. Nothing like that has happened to me yet.
Which category of movies Ajay likes?
I like light-hearted movies that are entertainment.
Okay. Apart from traveling in bus, I'm sure you enjoy traveling in bus. But otherwise, if you're going on a vacation, would you like to go alone on vacation, or would you like to travel with groups?
No, so I like to travel with my wife, uh, and we've done a lot of trips with my wife, my parents, and parents-in-law in the last few years, uh, and those have been spectacular. So we've done trips to Leh, we've traveled to Himachal, we've done some other trips as well, and those have been really good. I also like to travel with friends.
Super. The last question from rapid fire. Okay, well, while doing farming or while you're talking to the farmers, meeting farmers, and you're actually on the field, facing the hot sun. What is your dress code? So do you dress up like a startup founder, completely dressed formally, or do you, what is the way? How do you carry yourself?
No, no, I always dress informally. It's very hot. It's also not comfortable to dress formally at all. I think outside a closed building, dressing formally doesn't work in India. It's just not for India's weather. So never. I never dress formally on the field.
Okay. So simple, Ajay. So what would you do if you become the chief minister? What are the positive reforms you would bring in for your state?
I think again I'll stick to agriculture. Three reforms. One, I think information has to be made more accessible to farmers on what policies are being brought for them,
Mhm.
and if those policies are not implemented, how should they go and get it fixed? I think there's a lot of information gap between what the government is doing and what the farmers think that the government is. So that needs to be fixed. Uh, Second, I think uh, the entire subsidy system for agriculture is around fertilizers, chemical fertilizers, and chemical insecticides. The subsidy system needs to be shifted to more, viable um, and sustainable means of, applying manure to the field. So that needs to be changed, because all of the subsidy, I'd say, if I remember correctly, the subsidy for agriculture is more than a lakh crores, right, per year. Uh, all of that goes into chemical and pesticides. That needs to be shifted. That's number two. The third thing I'd say is that a lot of every state has a number of traditional and heirloom varieties of rice, varieties of vegetables. Uh, I think the government needs to or I, as chief minister, would put in a lot more effort in preserving and, more importantly, marketing those. So those are the three things.
Super. Good. Nice thoughts, and I think you have a lot of clarity in what you want to really do. So thanks a lot, Ajay, for joining us and sharing your experience, your journey in this particular show. And thanks a lot, friends, for watching this. And we'll also share the links for connecting with Ajay and links for Magasool and the website so that you can check out what Magasool has offers. And if you have a farmer around who needs help, or you can do some of these activities at home to build that hope that we're moving towards sustainable farming. So do connect and support Magasool and Ajay. So thanks a lot, Ajay, again, for coming on the show. There are only few people who are doing or working towards sustainable farming, saving the environment, and doing something which is like good, back to tradition, healthy way, saving the sea, moving away from pesticides. So some of these subjects are very close to my heart also. So that's one of the reason the conversation really went well. So thank you again for coming on to the show.
Thanks a lot, Ravi. Thanks for having me here, and I am really keen to talking to Farmer Ravi sometime.
Sure. Thank you.
Bye bye.
Thank you.
Have a good Diwali weekend.
Yeah. Happy Diwali in advance.